Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. Let's put our phones on vibrate before I get blasted by Nick, because I could feel that one coming. Everything good?
Good. Jenna, your hair looks great.
Thank you.
Thanks to your guy, Freddie, our guy, friend of the show. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Freddie.
Happy birthday,
It's his birthday and the 3-year or 2-year anniversary of him joining the show.
Yes, your hair guy, too?
Yes, absolutely. My hair guy, now that I have hair, all these things are accurate.
I thought the hair club people and then the plug people and then all those people were taking.
This lie is going to follow me for the rest of my life.
5'8".
I might shave my head again just to grow it out again to debunk all of this.
We were there and we did
Our ratings are
Happy birthday, Freddie.
Thanks to the hair. Happy birthday, Freddie.
Bless the NFL for gifting us with headlines on this Wednesday morning. The Chiefs are front runners to land Jalen Ramsey. The Panthers seem to have Cam Newton problems. And the Giants finally pulled the long-awaited emotional move we've all been waiting for. Giants have finally turned the proverbial page from Eli Manning to this year's 6th overall pick, Daniel Jones. Clearly wasn't an easy decision for the Giants, who followed up last year's dismal season with an 0-2 start to this season. Yes, Eli gave Big Blue 16 years, 2 Super Bowls, and some of the best facial expressions in the game of football. But now the team turns to Daniel Jones. The rookie will get his first career start on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. C, we'll start with you. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
I'm not surprised at all. I made a comment on yesterday's show, especially with his record being at 116-116. If I was Eli, and it's hard when you're at the end. I was listening to Shannon talk a couple days ago, and he was talking about his last year. He was watching film, and he was watching the tight end run. He was like, oh, man, number 84 is slow. And he's like, oh, that's me. I remember my last year in Miami, not being in shape, end up in a hospital for a long period of time, and ultimately deciding after I got back healthy, that was enough football. There is no strategy to get out of this business. You either get knocked out or someone takes your spot. Very seldom are you ever to, you know something? And we like to say this, oh, you know, I'm ending on my terms. Well, you know, if you were ending on your terms, you probably keep playing, because this is not a job that you can replace. So I think they did the right thing. They have been milking this for a couple years. They have gone through a couple coaches and some star players on Eli's behalf. Because for me, if they had made an adjustment with Eli a couple years ago, would OBJ be there?
Yep.
Because OBJ might have been more happy. I'm not going to say that OBJ told me he was not happy with Eli. No, that wasn't the case. They just were not a good football team. So I think the Giants did the right thing. They were more than fair with Eli Manning. They have treated him better than any other superstar that the Giants have had. And that includes players that were better than them. Recently, Michael Strahan. No, they didn't treat Stray bad, but they didn't give him the Eli treatment.
Nope.
Lawrence Taylor, they did a lot of things for Lawrence Taylor, but he wasn't able to milk out a few years like Eli's been able to. And those are the greatest players in the history of the Giants. Harry Carson, he wasn't able to end his career the way Eli was, so they did him a solid. And you knew that once they drafted Daniel Jones, when they pulled that card and put his name on there, he was going to play this year. And, Nick, you were the one early in the year. There were people saying that, yeah, Daniel's going to play, but you had pointed out, man, week number 5, 6, like this.
I thought there was a clear exit ramp, and that was for the New York Giants. If you looked at the schedule, in week 6, they played New England. They're going to play New England on a Thursday. The following week, they have the Arizona Cardinals, a team that going into the year we didn't anticipate and still don't anticipate to have a great defense. Okay, you give Eli, who, keep in mind, the general manager said he might have a good 2 years left.
And told us we were watching the wrong film because he looked good.
He looked good
last season.
He might have 2 years left. Turns out he had 2 games left. And so I thought they'd give him 6 weeks, have the career end against the team where it had its greatest moments, the New England Patriots.
Even if he loses that game, which we thought he would, he'd be 3-3 against the Pats.
3-3 against the Patriots, and really anyone's ever going to remember is just the 2 wins in the Super Bowl. And then you'd have 10 days for your rookie to get ready for a beleaguered Cardinals team. That's what I thought they would do. Now, I think they did the right thing here in pulling the plug when they did. But once again, my critique on the Giants is they are trying to have, in the offseason and even now, trying to have it both ways. In that if you're only going to give Eli 2 games, then why give him the season at all? I know the cap is going up and up and up, but Eli Manning is over 10% of your cap this year for 2 games of football. Eli Manning, you could have saved $17 million if you would have had the hard conversation. The moment you drafted Daniel Jones, you knew Daniel Jones is finishing this season as our starting quarterback, no matter what you said publicly. So, yeah, for Eli's sake, I'm glad he's not finishing 116 and 118, 116 and 119 for his career record. At least he didn't get to finish with a winning record, but he didn't finish with a losing record either. But to do it 2 games in, you then wonder why they didn't do it 4 months ago when they could have had more flexibility. Maybe then they keep Odell Beckham Jr. and you go into this year with, Saquon, Odell, Danny Dimes, this young quarterback, some real optimism, even if people are skeptical of the rookie. So, yeah, given how the Giants have played, how Eli has played, we knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen this week. I thought they'd give him a few more weeks, but this is long overdue.
They could have done it 4 months ago. They could have done it 2 seasons ago. I mean, there were a number of
exit ramps
along the way that they really could have done this. You said that this wasn't there's no real great way for this to end. There's no ideal way for a football player to really exit the NFL. But did the Giants do right by Eli? Should they have, if they didn't do it then, should they have at least at this point let him finish out the season?
Well, it's hard to say which week you're going to go to. You know you're going to Daniel Jones at some point. Is week number 4 better than week number 2? Did they really give him a chance? Did Danny Dimes beat him out in training camp? Those are all questions that the Giants aren't going to answer that. And the reason why, because Dave Gettleman, since he's been a general manager, all he's done is lie to us. That's all he's done is lie to us, so we can't trust what he's going to say. And it started with, I'm not going to trade OBJ. He didn't have to tell us that. There's not general managers sitting around saying if they're going to trade players or not. So that was a comment that we didn't need. Go ahead.
So did they do this the right way then? Was this really
There is no perfect way. Eli has made what, Nick?
He's made more money.
He's made a ton of money.
He's made more money. Well, hold on, just real quick so people understand. He's made the most money as a football player of any player in the history of the league. He has made more money in NFL salary than any player ever. And so, Jenna,
I think this is more about pride and less about money right now. He's not waking up this morning, Eli, going, "Well, I made a ton of money,
no, agreed,
so I'm in
but
good
if you're
shape."
asking, if your questions come from the perspective of, did the Giants disrespect Eli? The Giants bent over backwards in a way I cannot remember a franchise doing to try to respect Eli. They have had 1 winning season since 2012. There are players greater than Eli. His brother's one of them. Tom Brady's one of them. We got 2 guys in my mind from his draft class, and Ben and Rivers, who are 2 of them, whose teams would never allow their franchise to atrophy the way it has at the hands of not just the quarterback, overall mismanagement, where the quarterback hasn't played well.
The coach got fired for benching him.
One coach got fired for benching him. The star quarterback, the star wide receiver, I would argue, the straw that broke the camel's back in that regard, was criticizing Eli in that interview. And so I think their problem wasn't removing the Band-Aid. It was doing it a quarter inch at a time. They could have ripped it off, and they refused to. But it is surprising to me that once you go into the year with Eli, he gets 8 quarters. And not even 8 quarters, because Daniel Jones came in at the end of week 1. He gets 7.5 quarters. If they were going to go into the season with Eli, I thought, give him the Bucs game, because they might win it. And then you have Walsh, but I don't think they wanted. I think they wanted to get to Daniel Jones.
And they didn't want to do this coming off a win. Obviously.
Well, they weren't going to do it coming off a win. If he wins the Bucs game, he gets a couple more weeks. But there was no good way to do this once they decided to go into the year with him on the roster.
Yeah, you know, playing in the National Football League, I got a theory. All of us got an exit. We don't know what the date is, but we do have an exit. We got an entry coming in. We got an exit that is definite. Someone's going to wear your jersey typically when you get done. So when you're there, you got 2 choices. Get as much memory and try to get as much money as possible. Try to get as many memories. Try to make the time you spend with your friends and everything and the relationships you develop that they're special, because that's all you got when you leave the league. So when you ask me the question, did they disrespect him? Well, they gave him the most respect. Money is the most respect. How much do you respect me? I'm going to pay you at the top of your field to do it, even though you're not one of the best at your field. So disrespect, That's overrated.
And just real quick, before I move on, Daniel Jones will not be benched this season due to poor performance. But we are 2 weeks into the year. 7 starting quarterbacks from week 1 are not going to be the starting quarterbacks in week 3 due to injury. Eli Manning, where this could get bad for him, and we've talked about this, is if week 9 Eli's got to trot back out there after being the backup for the first time since his rookie year because Daniel Jones suffers an ankle sprain or some injury. I mean, they're not releasing him. He's going to be on the roster. He's going to be the backup quarterback in a role he has not served since his rookie year.
And he's got a no trade.
He's got no trade, and he's not going to waive it. He doesn't want to be traded. So this is where the Giants are right now, and the Daniel Jones era starts on Sunday.
All right, well, there's a lot to get to here. A number of angles. Eric Mangini will come out. We'll ask him what he thinks. But coming up, would landing cornerback Jalen Ramsey make the Chiefs clear-cut Super Bowl favorites? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on Sirius XM. We'll be right back. Are you ready for what's ahead? You can't always predict the future, but you can game plan for it. Generations of families and businesses have harnessed the power of Pacific to help them reach their unique goals. Whether you need to save money to meet your needs, ensure your family is protected, or make sure you don't run out of money, Pacific Life has a variety of financial solutions that can help. Pacific Life counts more than half of the 100 largest U.S. companies as its clients and has been named one of the 2019 World's Most Ethical Companies by the Ethisphere Institute. Protecting what matters most to people for 150 years and counting, that's the power of Pacific. Ask a financial professional about how Pacific Life can help you game plan for your future, or visit www.pacificlife.com. Welcome back. We'll get to Jalen Ramsey in a second, but first, New Jersey high school football. Wayne Hill's Christian Puntilillo with a nice catch off his own chest.
Oh, that's great. No touchdown because same rules in college when you're down even if you're not touched, but that is awesome.
That's a great catch there. I was trying to figure out
where the...
Oh, my goodness. I wish we had the other angle. He caught it right before it went off the ground with his right hand. Tapped it to himself.
Right there.
They play some good football in Jersey.
All right, next up, California high school football. Okay. Inglewood High's Orion Peters makes 5 guys miss before taking it in.
Oh, a nice little spin.
Let me tell you how I know this dude is fast, Nick.
How?
He run on the field, ain't got no grass on it. No. Oh, poor Inglewood.
Man.
Them kids ain't got no grass to play on, but they ain't stopping them from the love of the game.
Man. And that is, I mean, getting tackled on that's got to be brutal, too. The way to avoid that is just don't get tackled.
All right, in Florida, Img Academy's Michael Redding with a nice little acrobatic catch right there.
Oh. Let me see this again.
Img Academy out of Bradenton. They got a bunch of star players down there. We got a couple at Ohio State. This kid right here is going to be playing football for the U.
Oh, really?
Yep, in their great legacy of wide receivers. Bradenton, one of the best institutions, prep high schools to prepare guys for the next level.
Yep. Tennis as well, multi-sports down at IMG.
All right, moving on. Jalen Ramsey wants out of Jacksonville, and the Chiefs are reportedly the primary suitor to land the all-pro cornerback. Chiefs players have started their own recruiting, with Tyreek Hill tweeting at Jalen Ramsey, "Let's go." It's more of a subtle recruiting tactic there. Tyrann Mathieu added, "What's up, big head," to Jalen and his agent. That's a term of endearment, I'm guessing. Whether Jalen's a Jag or a Chief, he's got one thing on his mind.
All I care about is winning, man. Everybody know that. I want to win. Straight up. Now, excuse my language, but everybody know that. That's who I am. That's that passion, that fire, that heart. That's what y'all love.
All right, Nick. I mean, how much better could your team possibly get? But would acquiring Jalen Ramsey make the Chiefs just a little bit closer to securing the Super Bowl?
Listen, if you were to tell me every single player in the league is available, and for the Kansas City Chiefs, who would be your first overall selection? It's Jalen Ramsey. He is the best player at his position at the single biggest position of need for the Chiefs. So it is in that regard, it's a perfect fit. Now, I don't know how Brett Veach, the GM, would make the money work because they got a lot of high-paid guys on the team already, and Patrick Mahomes is about to become the highest-paid guy in the history of football a year from now. But if they obviously know that, and they're still pursuing him, they're still going after him, so they think they can make the money work. I did find Jalen's interview there interesting, and he said some other things about, listen, I'm on the Jags now, I'm preparing for Tennessee. He said all the right things, but it made me remember his rookie year, when Jalen Ramsey, after not having a lot of experience losing, was on a bad Jags team his rookie season, and early in the year was seen crying, openly crying on the sidelines during one of their losses. And he was asked about it after the game, and he said, just flatly, I'm just sick of the losing. I am sick of the losing. And then in year 2, they were a good team. Year 2, they bought a lot of defensive players in free agency. Jalen was a first-team All-Pro, was exceptional. They make it to the AFC Championship game and had a lead on the Patriots late in that game, if you remember. It all went to hell last year in year 3, and year 4 is not off to a much better start. They haven't paid him. They're not winning. It's not a marquee franchise. I don't blame him for not wanting to be there. But for the Chiefs, the defense, to me, already is showing signs of improvement with the 6 new starters, with the new defensive coordinator. But where their biggest question mark is, do they have a single quality corner? And if you're going up against the Patriots, who all of a sudden have 3 very quality wide receivers, you're going to need some quality corners. I believe Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the NFL. He profiled that out of college. His physical traits are unmatched by any other corner in the league. And so, yeah, this would be a great counter to the Patriots adding Antonio Brown, the Chiefs adding the best corner in the league.
Right. If we have all the defensive players, and this just because I've just seen the game a little bit differently, I would probably add Aaron Donald. I saw Aaron Donald give them problems in the Super Bowl. I know they have a huge, huge concern on their offensive line because if we're trying to match this up, okay, how would he be best against New England?
Sure.
Because New England's going to be there. I wouldn't be trying to compare, what would I do? What do I need against Oakland? Be breathing, all right? What the Chargers are going through with all their injuries, this is the question of, will he help them against New England? And to me, I still think you need more pass rush. But if you can't get pass rush, and if you can't get it at the defensive tackle, the next way to affect a quarterback is pass coverage. Pro Football Focus, they do great examples of it, breaking down the analytics. If you can't put pressure on the quarterback, then you need to make sure that the coverage and everything affects the quarterback. Jalen is a tremendous player. I believe the best corner that we have. His dimensions, his arm length, his size, his speed, the way his ability to be able to play man-to-man, his ability to be able to negate a superstar from going off in a game, those are things that you do need. And we know now, AB is in New England. Josh Gordon is in New England. You're definitely going to have a concern as far as pass coverage, but I don't know if they have the cap space, given the amount of money they just spent on Tyreek, what they have coming up into the future. So to me, it's a long shot. But where doesn't he fit? All right, he fits anywhere. If you want to play defense, he fits. He is the prototype. There is no kid in college that looks like him. There's no kid out, but he is the prototype right now. If there was one guy you told me that it was 1st and goal or 3rd down, and I personally was going against him, I'd be like, okay, remove Jalen. I'll take my chances with the rest. Pat Peterson, he's right there close. He's not playing right now, but coming into the season, those 2 I would have ranked as the best 2 corners we have in the game.
You said something interesting. There's no place he doesn't fit. He obviously feels right now he doesn't fit in Jacksonville. The question for Jalen that I was reading some people speculate about is, could he be something of a disruptive force on a Chiefs team that has so many good things going for them right now? How do you think Andy Reid would deal with Jalen Ramsey if they were to acquire him?
Right. The biggest problem is that Jalen, Tom Coughlin, and Doug Marrone, they don't have the same type of blood type. Now, Jalen's into winning. There is a handful of guys that are the elite of the elite. In losing, man, they are not good losers. I was never a good loser. Man, I used to come to the family room. We typically, after the game, all the family is in one room where they've watched in the stands, but they come back where they have refreshments, and all your relatives are in one spot. And my former wife, she knew Man, if we lost that game, I better have those kids ready because this dude is going to act a fool. And I wouldn't embarrass her, but I wasn't interested in meeting your family. I wasn't interested in meeting someone that you went to school with, your auntie, all that. No, I had lost the game, and my whole week's work was a negative. I was not productive. And I used to go to my car, and I ain't ashamed, and cry like I was in Little League. In Little League, I was worse. High school, I was awful. In college, they just thought I was crazy. And even when they start getting paid for money, it didn't change me. And there are guys out there that they do not want to lose at this game. They're that competitive. And people say, oh, well, gain control of yourself. Well, he's a special athlete. The people at Florida State, my daughter went to Florida State when Jalen went there. I had a lot of kids I coached play ball with Jalen. The coaches there ain't had no problem with them. Jalen's only problem there was they are losing. All right? They didn't have a quarterback for a long time, didn't have an offense that would help keep up with the defense. So I could understand his frustration in Jacksonville.
So Jalen Ramsey was interviewed a couple weeks ago, and they said, well, what's the biggest gripe? Why are you unhappy? And he said, I don't like the way they're using me. I want to play more man. They want me to play more zone. How much of it is that? I mean, Spags likes to play more zone. And how much of it is I just don't get along? They're not paying me. I'm unhappy, and we're losing.
It's all those things. If you're a coaching staff, you are supposed to listen to your players, and you should try to create something compared to, you know something, this is my system. Well, sometimes you get players that are outside the system. Jalen is a 1%er, all right? Of the 24,000 people that ever played this game, he's a 1%er. He don't need no system. He's been all-pro playing off in zone. Oh, how good is he? He has been unbelievable playing on the line of scrimmage in bump and run. He knows his skill set. They should be playing. He's so rare. It's idiotic not to play to his strength. So he should be disappointed in what they're doing.
And there has been some very vocal, very prominent former players going on television and radio coming out and criticizing Jalen and other guys for demanding trades and saying that it's becoming too much like the NBA. What I would say to that is this. The Jacksonville Jaguars' #1 prerogative this year was to win games. Other than that, their #1 goal as an organization should have been to make sure the best player on your team, who you drafted, who is not even into the prime of his career yet, is happy to be a Jaguar, that he wants to be a Jaguar. And if you can't, listen, you can't manufacture the wins. What you could have done is paid him and let him play the style he wants to play.
That would have kept the flame down.
If you pay him and, okay, listen, this is our scheme, but we'll make some special adjustments for you, then maybe 0-2 isn't having him demand a trade. So maybe it's not their fault they're 0-2. Nick Foles got his collarbone broke, had tough schedule in the first couple weeks of the year, Chiefs and Texans. Right, all those things.
I just wish a lot of us would just swallow our pride and watch what they do in New England. People just get so tired of it. Bill Belichick changed this week. He went out and got AB. That's a change for him. If he is able to get AB to straighten up, to play the way he wants him to play, and get another Super Bowl, that would be 7 Super Bowls. But he would also have, I dealt with Randy Moss, I dealt with Corey Dillon. I dealt with AB. Those are like Super Bowl trophies in themselves. So not only 7. If you're in the business of coaching, you're in the business of teaching kids. We get our kids all from the same spots. We're not going anywhere. We're not going international getting our kids. We're going to the same cities, to the same schools, same high school programs, getting these kids. These coaches, they need to coach them up. And that's what Belichick does, and we can all take a lesson from that.
And we should mention Jalen Ramsey did say he would play this weekend if there is, or was it Monday? Thursday night. That's right. I knew it wasn't Sunday. All right, take a break. Coming up, will Cam Newton be sidelined for a must-win game against the Cardinals? That's next on First Things First.
Well, he'll play Thursday, and that'll probably be his last game as a Jag.
During Monday Night Football, this video right here of Odell signing the arm of a fan named Elijah went viral. However, that wasn't the end of it. That same fan
saw this coming.
Got Odell's autograph tatted, made it permanent. Now, that could be a good idea if Odell continues on with his trajectory. If you're a diehard fan,
no matter what, it's a bad idea.
Hang on. But what if something happens?
What if, let's just say the first is true.
What if he gets good?
Well, I mean, no, she means what if his career goes poorly. But let's say
let's
say he gets 120 touchdowns. He's a Hall of Famer. Do you think you used to go and want that? I really like Odell. You think you want that tatted on your arm in 40 years?
I won't say it on television. I can name 5 decisions you made back when you were in college that you wish you hadn't made.
Confirmed.
My point is you're in a different state of mind maybe
First
at that
of all,
age.
Different state of mind.
We're signing this guy to college, and it's a tattoo.
Jenna, really?
Yeah.
Just because you got tattoos and
I have
names
no
on your body.
Nick, I don't have one tattoo.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's not what I heard.
Tell me, CC.
I just got to sit out on this one.
No, let's hear it.
I mean, come on. That's just common sense.
You can't get someone.
Wait till he goes to the Jersey Shore when he's a grandpa and that's all stretched out.
Yeah.
How cute that's going to be.
Oh,
Listen,
no.
you can get the names of your children tattooed on you if you'd like. That's everything else, man.
Lord, whenever you want to come get me and put me back in the prime time, I'm ready.
Stories to start your morning brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. The Giants announced they will be benching Eli Manning, which means rookie 6th overall pick Daniel Jones will make his first career start on the road against the Bucs on Sunday. CC, what do you expect out of Daniel Jones?
I'm pulling for Daniel, and the reason why is because covering the draft, I didn't have him ranked that high. When the Giants took him, I was surprised. Now, leading up to the draft, there were rumors that they had a great deal of interest in him. They liked his overall demeanor, his throwing ability. But seeing him in training camp, he was awesome in training camp. I'm going to watch him. I'm going to try to support him. I'm going to evaluate him just like any other quarterback, not as if I had it right or I had it wrong. The kid deserves a chance. He does have big-time talent. He's a better athlete than I thought. The Giants are a good organization. How are they going to support him? So, yes, he has a chance. He does have a chance. He does have the tools to be a starter in this league for a long time.
Our friends at Fox Bet said the Giants' chances of winning this game against Tampa improved, actually, just slightly, going from Eli to Daniel Jones, which is noteworthy. The receiving core, by the way, didn't get better with this change. The defense didn't get better with this change. The most notable thing for Daniel Jones, though, is going to be ball security, because in the preseason, he had 4 fumbles. In the one regular season brief moment he fumbled the ball. You can't have 5 fumbles in 6.5 drives. So he's going to have to hold on to the football, but it is now he's going to have the bulk of the season to see what he is as a rookie.
Yeah, and I saw and listened to people yesterday that were trying to put Daniel Jones in the category of like a dual threat quarterback, okay? He's a better athlete than Eli, but so is 95% of the population. So let's not get carried away with dual threat, Lamar, Kyler type of
Josh
athleticism.
Allen,
No.
All right, moving on. Jaguars all-pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey wants out of Jacksonville. The asking price is climbing with a recent report that the Jags want 2 first-round picks. See, is Jalen Ramsey worth the haul?
No. I wouldn't give up 2 first-round picks for him. No, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't, because they're going to be stuck. They're in a predicament. What are they going to do? All right, they're going to have to get rid of Jacksonville. So no, I wouldn't panic. The Texans panic on Tunsil. So the asking price now for premier players is up. I'm guaranteed Jacksonville take a 1 and something. Well, okay, I ain't giving them 2 number 2s.
The Tunsil thing totally skewed the market. Steve's exactly right. When Tunsil, who is a good but not a great left tackle, goes for 2 1s and a 2 on the exact same pay scale as Jalen, guy awaiting the next big contract, it skews it for everyone.
Tunsil, in his exit meeting with the general manager of the Dolphins, said, for 2 number 1s, I trade myself. They had a real conversation.
But the other point here is it does depend on all number 1s are not created equal. If you're a team that thinks you're going to go to the Super Bowl, that number 1 is the 30th, 31st, 32nd pick, something like that, then I could do 2 number 1s potentially for a player of his caliber.
All right, moving on. The Patriots are placing starting left tackle Isaiah Wynn on IR again, this time with a foot injury he suffered in Week 2. This will sideline Tom Brady's blindside protector for at least 8 weeks. Keep in mind, he spent all of last season on IR as well with a torn Achilles. See, you expect the Patriots' O-line issues to catch up to them?
Oh, this is the biggest question in New England. How will they resolve the offensive line? Now, we know Dante Scarnecchia, one of the most respected, Coach Mangini, one of his friends. He is a great coach. But, man, you need some type of talent. You know they were desperate. Before the season started, last week of training camp, last week of the preseason, they trade a 3rd, trade a 6th for a couple offensive linemen. I mean, they are searching. And then they lose their prospect that they drafted last year, losing him. Yes, this is not the way they come. They've added AB, but it's not going to matter too much if they can't protect them. So this is the weakest unit. If they are not able to get to Super Bowl 54 in Miami, it will be because Tom Brady either got injured or this offensive line is not able to create balance or protection that the Pats need.
The right tackle missed week 2. The center's out for the year. The left tackle's now on IR. By the way, this also speaks to why Belichick's draft strategy has always been accumulate as many picks as possible. His first-round pick last year, Isaiah Wynn, missed last season on the IR again. His first-round pick this year, N'Keal Harry, on the IR for the year. These young players, it's such a crapshoot even if they're first-round talents. But this is a huge issue for New England, no matter how good that offensive line coach is.
All right, moving on to the Cowboys now, where Dak Prescott has looked like an MVP-caliber quarterback through 2 weeks, and thus he is ready to get paid. Stephen Jones said the team and Dak are close to a deal that would put the quarterback in, quote, rare air. Cris Carter, is Dak proving that he's more than just a game manager?
Well, I've been saying this. I just wish people would be more patient. And given the type of attention we have on the National Football League, people just don't think players. We like to put a mark on them, say something about them, and think they're going to stay on that mark. Players improve. People's situation improves. People understand the game. From a frantic pace, the game begins to slow down to those who play it longer. So Dak, you can see, he's not playing like he did in year 1. He's not playing like he did in year 2. He's playing a lot like he did in year number 3, the second half of the season. So I'm not surprised at all. So I thought Dak would eventually be able to throw the ball. What is the ceiling in that? Man, we didn't know Drew Brees when he was in his 4th year. We knew he was a prolific thrower coming from college and everything, but we didn't know he was going to be the greatest thrower of the football that we had ever seen. We just rushed to judgment. And a lot of people with Dak have rushed that, oh, his arm's not going to get stronger. They're only going to be a run-oriented, defensive dominant special teams. No, Dak can throw the ball. He is a quality quarterback. And if regardless of what people have said in the past, he has made drastic strides as far as his overall anticipation, his overall ball velocity. And when you know where people are going to be, the ball appears like it's going to get there quicker because you can anticipate it. You can throw it before the wide receiver gets up out of his break. And what you see is they're getting a lot more yards after the catch. And the other thing that you're seeing is, man, they're going down over the defense and making big shots against the defense more often than they did year 1 through 3, especially year 1 through 2.5 years, basically.
Absolutely. And to expand on your first point, which is we try to get a book on a player and say this is who they're going to be. That is particularly the case for guys that we don't look at as blue chippers out of college. So if you're a top 5 pick, no matter how poorly you play your rookie year, we believe, okay, you're still going to improve greatly. I don't think a lot of people thought Jared Goff, after that miserable rookie year, well, he's a lost soul. People were very high on Darnold going into this year, not because of how he played as a rookie, just because, hey, his 3rd overall pick, now he's going into year 2, he'll be better.
But that was skewed because Dak had such a great rookie year.
He had a great rookie year, but also, once he didn't have a great second year, once he wasn't great in the beginning of the 3rd year, it's like, oh, so this is why he was a 4th-round pick. So this is why he was a guy that was not considered this great prospect. All I can do for Dak is try to be fair. Through 2 weeks, he has been anything but a game manager. He's averaging 330 yards per game. He's completing 82% of his passes, and they're not dinks and dunks. It's 11 yards per attempt, and he has a 143 rating when a perfect quarterback rating is 158. When you add that it's not just those 2 games, it's the final half of last season, he's now strung together, last half of last season, the playoff game, 2 games here, a 12-game stretch where the team's 10-2, where he's averaging over 250 yards per game, where his touchdown-interception ratio is back around where it was that great rookie season. The quarterback rating is back around where it was that rookie season, and he's doing it with deeper passes than he did his rookie season. So I don't want to overreact to the beginning of the season, and I don't want to totally change my evaluation of where Dak was, but what he's done through 2 weeks is played like a league MVP. What he's done through 2 weeks is played like a superstar quarterback, and you have to give him credit for it. He has not been a game manager through 2 weeks of the year. He has been a force multiplier, and he's about to get paid like a force multiplier.
You do this interesting thing where you have a line and you divvy up the quarterbacks. You call called it the Matt Ryan line. I don't know if you could still call it.
He's been well above it this year.
And he was below it, or at least close to it for a while, right?
To me, he was well below it in the way he's played the last half of last year and now built on it this year with Kellen Moore, with Amari Cooper, with the weapons.
But John Kitna, too, I think, can take some credit.
He's been well above it. He's been sensational. And the Cowboys, thanks to that, look like one of the best teams in football.
All right, there seems to be a quarterback going in a different direction. Let's talk the Panthers now. Bad news and worse news. Which do you guys want first? I'm going to decide. We'll start bad news. They've started the season 0-2. The worst news, they might be without all-pro quarterback Cam Newton for a must-win Week 3 matchup on the road against the Cardinals. Cam's Sunday status unclear after aggravating the left foot, which he sprained in the preseason. Cece, what do you make of Cam's struggle with injuries?
Well, I mean, the injury, if it had been to his shoulder, if he had been staying in the pocket and scrambled out of the pocket, took off running and got injured trying to be an athletic quarterback, being a dual-threat quarterback, I might have a problem with it. But I don't have a problem with him coming back from the shoulder issues that he had, getting work done on that, changing his fundamentals, and getting his foot hurt in the preseason. There's nothing he can do about that. That offensive line being bad, that's what got his foot hurt. One of the worst times to get hurt is get nicked in the preseason, because for the most of the season, 3 quarters, you're going to be injured. So you know, for the most part, I'm not going to be healthy this year. That was the thing that I was worried about. So I was worried, are we really going to see the conversion in his passing? Because with his foot, and with foot injuries, they're really they're the hardest to be able to diagnose, and they're the hardest to be able to guesstimate when the player will come back. Why? It's the poorest circulation you have in your body. It's the furthest from your heart, and you got to be on your feet all day. So that was a tremendous setback for them when he had the sprain of his foot. It's his lead leg. Your lead leg is going to guide the ball where it's going. So it's in his left foot. People said, well, it shouldn't affect his passing. Everywhere you step, you push off your back, but your front foot is your lead foot. It's your guide. It guides your left foot and your left arm. It's going to guide you where you're going to throw. So if you can't come down on that foot, as you can see in last week's game, that was not Cam Newton. If you watched that game and didn't think, there must be something wrong with him, because there's no way Cam woke up that morning and forgot how to throw the football. So it's a significant injury, and that's what Aaron Rodgers, he got nicked in last year in the first game. It hampered him all year. Cam Newton, it's just a little bit different. Last preseason game he played in, he gets nicked in that. It affects him in week number 1 and definitely affected him in week number 2.
Well, and for Cam, you mentioned how the foot injury can affect his passing ability. It also clearly has removed any faith the team has in him running the football and any faith he has in running the football. He has 5 carries for -2 yards this year. Cam has never been, even the MVP season, he was not one of the 3 best pure passers in football. He was a good enough down-the-field passer when you add to it the fact that he is such a dynamic running threat, the most consistently effective running quarterback we've ever had, that he can be a great player. But who is Cam Newton in his career without his nearly 5,000 rushing yards and 58 rushing touchdowns? The answer would be an average or below average quarterback. It's when you add that element to his passing, which can be hit or miss, he can become an excellent quarterback. With the foot injury, he clearly doesn't have any faith running the football. And so he's coming off the shoulder surgery. Now he's dealing with the foot injury, and you're seeing it. That didn't look like Cam Newton. It didn't look anything like Cam Newton, and they didn't call the game like they had Cam Newton as their quarterback.
So is the team doing Cam a disservice? They keep throwing him back out there knowing he's not playing well, no, he's not 100%, knowing he has, 5 carries for -2 yards?
Player's going to play. The organization doesn't have a choice.
Even if it hurts the team?
Yeah, that's what the history of this league is about. The best players are going to play. The backup's not better than Cam. All right, Cam has been a superstar in this league, has been an MVP in this league. We see it all the time. Aaron Rodgers last year, their season, right? What happened? He couldn't get any better, but they kept putting him out there. That's the sport, Jenna. Like, you're not going to take a superstar off the field if he wants to be out there. You think Carolina? You think they think they're better without Cam Newton?
Well, now, listen, through 2 weeks, no. But given the fact that he re-aggravated the injury in week 2, now I think he might be taken off the field because he's hurt worse than he was at the beginning of the season.
But it's going to be him taking himself off. Cam reported to them, I don't know that I can go. It wasn't the team released something and said, you know something, we don't know if Cam's going to be able to go. It was the player.
He came up lame when he was trying to, he re-aggravated the foot injury, it looked like, on an overthrow to Greg Olsen. And he just, from that up to that moment in the game, if that is when he got hurt, he was 7 of 8, I think, passing. And it was after that all of a sudden all the throws were off. He wasn't running the ball at all. And now the Panthers, by the way, clearly were at least somewhat concerned about Cam's health. That's why they spent their 3rd-round pick on Will Grier. They're just, to me, they are in a very tough spot with Cam. His contract comes up after the end of next season. They have used him like a running back to a degree.
And they're paying the price?
Absolutely. He threw 120, up until the TJ Watt hit, Chris, 120 career games eligible, played 117 of them. TJ Watt hit happens. He probably should have been shelved earlier than he was. Now the foot injury. Now all of a sudden it's an injury on an injury. The effectiveness has absolutely been removed from his game. And now who are the Carolina Panthers without a dynamic dual-threat Cam Newton at quarterback? The answer is an 0-2 football team.
Yeah, we can't blame Carolina for his overall health. We got to remove that. If Cam had improved in a passer on his own, he wouldn't have had to run as much. All right, as a player, the most effective way to win is look at the player's tools. What does he provide us, gives us a chance to win? They had to utilize his running skills because those were better than his passing skills. So Cam Newton, that's the reason why he ends up like that, was because early in his career, he didn't develop as a passer because he relied on his body. But I've heard it said on TV recently, you don't see old scrambling quarterbacks. You don't see old running quarterbacks, all right, because you're going to get injured. Because once you leave the pocket, the rules are back to you're a normal player. You're protected in the pocket, so that's the reason why, ultimately, you must succeed from throwing the ball in the pocket.
All right, let's take a break. Leave it there. Coming up, has Eli Manning played his last snap in the NFL? That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, now joined by former head coach Eric Mangini. Hey, Coach.
What's up, Coach? Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you. Big story this morning, Coach. Eli Manning, Big Blue, making the long-awaited decision to finally bench Eli in favor of their future 6th overall pick, Daniel Jones. Eli helped the Giants win 2 Super Bowls since taking over as the team's starter in 2004, but now Daniel Jones will get his first career start on the road against the Bucs. Coach, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
I wasn't surprised by it because there's extreme pressure to play a player when you draft him that high. It's just, why? Well, why are we doing this now? And you look at the first 2 games, and it's Eli's fault. I mean, it's just Eli's fault. The defense is, what, 27th in yards allowed or 28th in yards allowed, 29th in points allowed, and they run the ball, 11 times the first game? As you look through, the receivers have been hurt. So what's the thought process? Is this just a function of we need to create hope, or is this a function of this is what's best for the young quarterback moving forward? Are they saying that the problems the Giants have are strictly Eli? Are we going to address any of the other problems that they've had, or we're just going to put it all on him? What's the end game here? They think that by inserting him, it's going to change the dynamic of the whole organization. It doesn't feel like it was well thought out. It feels like it was a function of we've drafted him high, we're feeling pressure externally to change something, so we're going to change this. And it doesn't make sense.
Ironic, since they stayed with him for so long, despite all the outside
Coach,
pressure.
what if it's a function of 38 and 59 over the last 7 years with him as the starter? And it was, I believe this came too late, not too early. I think they would have been far better served to do this in the offseason. To tell Eli, listen, we can save $17 million by releasing you. We have taken a quarterback number 6 overall. You've had an unbelievable run. You're the greatest quarterback in Giants history. It is time to move on. Once they start the season with him, I agree. I thought he would have gotten at least 4 games. I had pinned 6 games is when I thought they would move on from him. But Eli has clearly been done as, forget a force multiplier, he has been a force divider for a number of years now. And so you're right, there are a ton of other issues with the Giants. But I imagine he's not the only player player that was starting that's now no longer starting. I mean, he's not the only player that could be switched out. He's just the most notable one. I don't think it's the Giants should be criticized here for doing it this early. I think it's more so they did it this late after claiming, by the way, he's got a couple, maybe 2 good years left and that we weren't watching the film.
But you've got a once-in-a-generational talent, their words, right, that you run the ball 11 times with in your first game. A once-in-a-generational talent that you run the ball 11 times in the first game if you're trying to protect your quarterback who doesn't have his receivers. You trade away a receiver for whatever reason after you pay him a ton of money, so you eat up that salary cap space, and then you bring back this quarterback and you're paying him $17 million, and you're going to use him for 2 games? So if you feel like he's done, okay, and you're going to draft the player that you draft, yeah, okay, maybe you move on. But you jerry-rigged the whole preseason to make sure that young guy is as successful as possible against backups. It's going to be a little bit different now. And maybe this will be the cure-all. Maybe it will. But at some point, you got to take accountability in other areas of the team, as opposed to just keep dumping it on this guy and saying, well, he's the answer.
I just want some consistency, because both of you can be right. Nick said, yeah, he should have been benched a long time ago. Yeah, but once you start with training camp, you've made your decision. He hadn't done anything in the 2 weeks that would bench him. So you're just inconsistent on your messaging, and you're going to lose your locker room, because Eli got a bunch of guys in that locker room, and they're watching the film. So now you come to him, you say, well, Eli's not the only guy getting benched. Well, typically, you can justify it on the film, though. The coaches come in, they bring you in, they sit you down, they show you a number of plays that you didn't perform well at. I don't believe the Giants can do that and not do that to the rest of the guys that are starting. So it does send a mixed message to the locker room. And to me, Gettleman, very, very questionable how he's managed his whole tenure as the general manager, because constantly he's lied to me. And if Barkley is who he is and who I think he is, after 2 games, oh, he should have 50 carries, at least. Like, you should put everything offensively, especially with your wide receiver injuries and your suspension. It should have been on Barkley in week 1 and week number 2.
And when you look at the numbers from last year, he sacked it 7% of the time. And then what was it, the mollywogs or whatever they call the offensive line there? You know, that was the part of the issue, but also the issue was Eli, right? It was it's transferring the problems all to him, as opposed to taking a step back and saying, okay, here's the different areas that we can fix, and here's the long-term solution that we have at quarterback. Is this the best thing for Daniel Jones right now, to go in week 2 and play? Or is this just a pressure reaction to the fact that they're 0-2 and they want to keep people coming to the games?
So if they didn't do it in the preseason or in the offseason last year, whenever, how do you think the Giants should have handled it? When do you think would have
been the best time? Once they started the year with Eli, how many games would you have given him?
Well, Cris makes a great point, because we don't know the reads that Eli had. So maybe looking at the game, he missed a bunch of wide open receivers, which I find hard to believe.
Yes.
And maybe Daniel Jones at practice is lighting it up, but he's only lighting it up versus show team. So what is the compelling information that you have to push it forward? And to me, it's got to be compelling. It's got to be a function of Saquon Barkley, we've maximized what he can do. The game plan, we've maximized what the game plan can be. Defensively, we've addressed the problems that we've had, or we're making changes to try to fix it. And we've done all those things, but it still comes back to the fact that Eli's not performing. And that's the point where you say, now we make the transition to the young guy because he gives us a better chance. But you do want to, what happens if Daniel goes in and gets blown up? What happens if it's really bad?
Oh, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, ideally he goes in and lights it up and everybody's excited about it. But if he goes in and struggles or gets blown up, do you take him back out week 8 and put Eli back in?
You can't. Listen, you can't bench Daniel Jones unless he gets hurt, of course. Now, you've made the decision. I think, but I say that assigning a level of logic to the Giants organization they have not displayed. To me, their big mistake, I'll say it again, was done months ago. Once you decide, we're not taking the pass rusher from Kentucky, Josh Allen, we're taking Daniel Jones at number 6, you have made the decision. He is your starting quarterback to end 2019, no matter what Gettleman tells us. Oh, Eli's got 2 good years left. He didn't have 2 good games left, according to them. But once you make that decision, then you have to have the hard conversation. Greatest offensive player in franchise history, we are sorry, we are severing ties. That's $17 million that you could have saved against the cap. Maybe you keep Olivier Vernon. Maybe you, or if you still want to trade him for Kevin Zeitler because you need offensive line help, maybe you don't trade away Odell. Maybe you go into this season saying rookie quarterback, stud running back, stud wide receiver, upgraded offensive line, let's go. But I do agree with you in this regard. Once you say Eli's our guy, to give him 2 games makes it feel like you were just waiting for the first chance to pull the ripcord, which should have been back in March, in my estimation.
But you give him 2 games with a depleted receiver core,
yep,
and you don't even maximize the one guy that you say is the most talented player on your team. And at that point, it is what you said. It's what's our excuse to put the other player in. And Washington's going to face similar decisions here soon as to when they make the transition. Mm-hmm. But is it what's best for the player, or are you just reacting to external pressure because you're uncomfortable? Because you're uncomfortable with your current situation, are you really making the best decision long-term for the organization?
One thing I don't like about the inconsistency between Gettleman and the owner. The owner said, well, what if Daniel Jones doesn't play this year? He said it'd be a great year.
Great year.
It'd be a great year if he didn't play. Well, then you should have went with the Kansas City model. Remember that with Patty Mahomes? Mm-hmm. All right, Alex Smith was playing. They made the tough decision. All right, we're going to sit Patty Mahomes, even though we feel like he's got tremendous talent. Let's see him at the end of the season. And then they moved on from Alex Smith. The Giants chose to do something different. And who's telling the truth there? Every time Gettleman opens up his mouth, I feel like I'm being lied to.
Yeah, it's like when you fire an offensive coordinator after week 1 of the season. What did you know after week 1 that you didn't know all through training camp? And 2 games in, it just seems early.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll talk more about this, but coming up, will protecting Tom Brady be a serious issue for the Patriots this season? That's next on First Things First. Back here with Coach Mangini, we're talking Patriots now. They're placing starting left tackle Isaiah Wynn on IR with a foot injury that he suffered back in week 2. This will sideline Tom Brady's blindside protector for at least 8 weeks. Keep in mind, Wynn spent all of last season on IR as well with a torn Achilles. All right, Coach, with all the problems on the O-line, will all that finally catch up to the Patriots?
Well, it's going to be hard. And the one thing, the shining star for the Jets this past week was the defense, in the sense that they were able to disguise coverages. They were able to bring a lot of different pressure looks. Mm-hmm. They were able to generate some things against Cleveland when the offense really couldn't do much of anything. So there'll be issues from a protection standpoint that'll be created in this game. Could it catch up to them? Yeah, but you look at this past week. So they lose Nate Soldier, and then they lose Trent Brown, and then they have Isaiah Wynn, and then they sign Marshall Newhouse 4 days before the game. He starts at right tackle, but then he has to move it to left tackle. And Corey Cunningham, who they traded for at the end of preseason, comes in at right tackle, and David Andrews, the starting center, he's got to be replaced. So you're talking about the 3 critical positions on the O-line are all...
2 tackles in the center.
Both tackles in the center are all changed out. And the one guy that's playing a significant amount was signed 3 days earlier. And then the week before, you had Antonio Brown and all the issues that he brought in and all the potential distractions. But it's not really that big a deal, right? We barely talk about it. The AB conversation versus when he was in Oakland versus New England has now gone from up here at the top of the mountain to much lower, and you move on. I remember playing a game defensively there where we had a street free agent who had to start at corner. We had just gotten him. Troy Brown, a wide receiver, he was playing slot. We had Don Davis, a linebacker. He had to move to safety. And then I think Larry Izzo, a core special teamer, he had to come in and start an inside linebacker, and we ended up winning the game because all those guys came in and they did exactly what we asked them to do, and they played within the context of the game, and the whole team played within the game plan to win the game, and collectively as a group, we were able to overcome our shortcomings because everybody pulled a little bit harder and did exactly what we asked him to do.
So and I appreciate that, and I understand that, and I do wonder how much of last week was the Patriot way and how much of last week was playing the Dolphins and how much of it is a combination of the two. This week they have the Jets, and that's why you mentioned the Jets' success against the Browns. I don't know if people knew they had the Jets this week, but next week they are in Buffalo. And if Buffalo has a strength of their team right now is they're 2-0, it would be their defensive front. It would be their front seven in particular and their ability to get after the quarterback. And I am wondering how many injuries become too many injuries on one unit of your football team. It's not we've lost a safety, we've lost a guard, we've lost a running back. It's not a long list of injuries, but diversified along your team. It is your center's out for the year, your right tackle missed week 2, as you mentioned, Marcus Cannon, and now your left tackle, who is your third different left tackle in 3 years, he now is out for at least the next 10 weeks, or 8 to 10 weeks. So at what point do you reach the breaking point on the Patriots offensive line? No matter how well they're coached, no matter how good their culture is, I fear for New England, you have to be starting to come close to it to where you are at replacement level players at 3 of your 5 offensive line spots.
Yeah, but they're the only team that can handle it. And the reason why is because they're going to do, the reason why I trust them is because they're going to have an all hands on deck. If their pass protection gets a little leaky, you know what they're going to do? Max protect. They'll bring in a tight end, bring in a fullback, block it up. Imagine Josh Gordon and AB on the same side of the field. So if you want to bring me pressure, no problem. I'm going to block them with 8. I might even have Edelman chipping on the edge and then leaking out being the safety valve. But I can block 7 of them, and Tom Brady's going to get rid of the football. That's the reason why you're not going to exploit it. If it was any other team in the league, would I trust them going forward? No, because they don't have the overall football knowledge, and they're not the teachers that New England are, and their quarterback is going to hold on to the football. Aaron Rodgers, when they have O-line problems, what does he do? Instead of getting rid of the ball quicker, what does he do? He holds the ball even more. So Tom Brady and the football intel that they have will be able to correct this. At some point, is there going to be a defensive front to be able to give them some problems? Yes. But if you sit there and think you're going to rush 4 people and get to Tom Brady, no. Their routes will pick you apart. They'll sit in zone, and he'll get the ball to them. If you try to blitz them, they'll max it up. They'll have enough running attack to be able to balance it off that you can't tee off on them. But it's something that they will bring attention to more so than any other part of the field. Any other part of the team. And my last thing in closing is football is based on 3 phases. And before we go out on the field, the coach tells us we need to win 2 phases of this game to be able to win it. Who's going to beat them at special teams and who's going to beat their defense, which I believe is going to be a top 5 defense. So they already got 2/3 of the game won. So even if their offense gets real conservative and we'll just punt, they still got a great probability to be able to win the game because they know if we go into the game with this game plan, everyone that's out there is going to accept that game plan. So when you have that acceptance, coach, it's a lot easier to get the type of performance that you're looking for.
It's that, and there's going to be a toolbox. There's going to be a list of things that if this happens, what are we going to do? So it could be wide receiver screen, regular screen, quick passing game, so a little bit of mixer, no huddle to change up tempo, cadence, bring an extra offensive lineman in, let him play tight end, and let him help chip. Yep. Use the tight end to chip. Use the backs to chip. Keep changing it up so that all those things that you think you're going to exploit, now let's put the pressure back on them. I watched the Denver game the other day, and I felt so bad for that left tackle who had 5 holding penalties. And at some point you're thinking, you might want to give him some help. Like, bring somebody over there, take a little bit of pressure off this guy. But if you just sit there and say, well, you got to play better, you got to do better, you're on your own.
Okay, if it's not your left tackle and it's not your center, if it's not Gronk, and may not even be Tom Brady, is there a player the Patriots can lose and still be okay?
Well, you can't lose Tom Brady.
Well,
okay, so Brady's the only one. Brady's the only guy that if we came out today and said this player just got placed on IR, we'd be on high alert. Is Brady the only one on the roster?
Yes.
Stephon Gilmore? Dante Hightower?
Nope.
None of them?
Nope.
Brady.
Okay.
Brady.
He's the only player.
Well, then if Bill somehow.
Thank you. Yes, if Bill gets mono, I'm concerned.
Yeah, and then Josh McDaniels will be my next one, probably followed by Dante Scarnecchia.
Unbelievable.
We'll see a little of your coach coming up. Has
like
Eli Manning played his last snap in the NFL? That's
or
next on
coaches.
First Things First.
The coaching, that's all talent.
Back here, First Things First, and we're going viral. So the Jets suffered a blowout loss to the Browns on Monday night, and their Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams was benched. Some are speculating that benching Adams led to this, the most mature move going, said nobody ever. Deleting the Jets out of his social media bios on Twitter and Instagram. Come on.
Come on what? In what regard?
Well,
that it's a big deal or that he shouldn't have done it?
I mean, it's your job. You didn't do it well. You got benched. So what? I'm going to get you. I'm going to take you off
I gotta
of my
check Jenna's
Instagram.
bio. I got to check Jenna's bio real quick.
The name of the show is on there.
Oh, okay. All right. Good for you, Jenna Wolfe.
Instagram, and because it's important to me, even if I have a bad day, I still keep it on there.
All right, so we need to monitor. Listen, bosses, we got some bosses in town. If Jenna ever removes us from her bio, know that she's unhappy.
This would be my corner. What's yours, C?
I'm erasing y'all right now. Nick Wright, co-host, erased. Jenna Wolfe, co-host, First Things First, erased.
What did we do?
Just cause some controversy.
Bam! Look at that.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yep, proud Buckeye, Hall of Fame, IG, Cris Carter 80. He's out of here.
It don't mean nothing.
That was the point?
It don't mean nothing.
Jamal Adams.
It don't mean nothing.
Now, there was also speculation he unfollowed the
You
Jets
think
on
the
social
billionaire
media.
owner is,
No, I don't think so. I just thought it was kind of a small move on his part.
He says that Jenna thinks it's petty. Jenna thinks it's petty. But he says he was never following the Jets on Instagram. He just erased them from his bio and didn't unfollow. The unfollow is the bigger move. Jalen went the extra step. He erased all pictures of him as a Jaguar. That's like what you do when you get divorced. It's like, no, remove all those photos. Jalen was doing that at a time. I like following these stories.
You need to do one of those things like the Men in Black need to zap them.
Oh, yeah, neuralizer. Give me your phone.
They should have that,
fixing
man.
this.
No, don't do that.
I'm fixing it.
Don't do it, man.
I'm putting myself back.
Nick,
Stories
don't do
to
it.
start your morning.
There you go. Thank you.
Brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. So the Giants announced they will be benching Eli Manning, which means rookie 6th overall pick Daniel Jones will make his first career start on the road against the Bucs. Cris, what do you expect out of Jones?
I expect him to throw the ball, but man, I need more balance. I need the stat sheet to say, I don't care how many completes he's got, but I need Barkley to touch it 25 times. If they are doing what's best for Daniel Jones, they're doing what's best for that offensive line. If they want this kid's career to get off to a good start, that's what they have to do first. He's a young quarterback. I expect him to struggle. Golden Tate's not there. Shepard's been in and out of the lineup. He looked great in training camp, but the regular season is a different animal.
It does feel to me like everything they did in the preseason and training camp, the way they called plays in the preseason games, and now when they're putting him in there, it is to try to make him look as good as possible, which I understand. In that they waited until they're through a couple good defenses. Now you have Tampa and Washington, maybe two of the weaker defenses before, unless you wanted to wait far deeper into your schedule. My concern with Daniel Jones, aside from lack of college production, is since we've seen him with the Giants, he puts the ball on the ground about once a quarter. He has to clean that up. He fumbled at a ridiculous rate in the limited action in preseason. He even fumbled in the limited action week 1 we saw him.
I believe Todd Bowles a pretty good defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. I believe they're going to get after him. So it ain't going to be easy in Tampa this week. So even though Tampa Bay, it might seem like, oh, man, it's an easier week to put him in there. There is no cupcake unless you get the high school team with the called the Dolphins. Unless you get them. They're the only franchise to ever go undefeated. They're the only franchise that's going to have undefeated and I hope they don't win no.
Totally defeated.
Jaguars All-Pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey wants out of Jacksonville. The asking price is climbing with a recent report.
I have to laugh because Jalen said something both his teammates got up.
Right. The Jags apparently want 2 first-round picks for Jalen. See, is he worth the haul? It seems like a lot.
Well, Mika Fitzpatrick just got a number 1 for him. He's not as good a player as Jalen is. Jalen's more proven. We saw Tunsil go for 2 number ones. Now, that's not the asking price that typically you're going to get for a premier starter, but I wouldn't give up 2 number ones for him. I'll give him a 1 and something, but Jacksonville, it is their job to try to get as much as possible. Jacksonville knows they can get a number 1. It's just a matter of what else can we get with that number 1? Can we get a player? All right, and I believe they have a great deal of interest in other players also besides that number 1 pick.
And it depends on who you're trading with. If you're trading with the Cardinals, and I'm just picking them out of thin air, then a 1 and a 3 might get it done because you expect that number 1 to be a top 10 pick. If you're trading with the Chiefs, who they've been tied to, then a number 1 by itself is not going to come close because that's going to be after the 27th pick of the first round. So how good is the team you're trading him to? Therefore, how good is the pick going to be? Forget Tunsil. Khalil Mack went for 2 1s. Jalen Ramsey, to me, is the same caliber of player at the same age Khalil Mack was at just as valuable as a position.
No, sir. That defensive end, I can force a double team. Jalen can't force a double team. He doesn't change the math on the field. Defensive end is more important than even elite corner.
All right, let's move on to the Panthers. Cam Newton's Sunday status against the Cardinals is unclear after aggravating the left foot, which he sprained in the preseason. See, what do you make of Cam's struggle with a rash of injuries?
It was fairly obvious in the game on Thursday that he was hurt. I thought that was the worst game I'd ever seen Cam. He looked like the Cam kind of at the combine, throwing the ball all crazy and everything. You knew the foot was still bothering him, and it's impossible for him to try to change his mechanics and everything that he's tried to do the last year and a half and be functioning on a lead foot, which is his left foot. It helps you guide the ball and for him to be accurate. So I didn't expect him to play well. I knew it was an injury. I knew that was not Cam Newton.
And he seemed to re-aggravate it in the game because early in the game, while he wasn't running, he was accurate. And then after the first quarter, his accuracy totally left him when he apparently re-aggravated the injury. If Cam Newton does not have his mobility to lean on, and he's run the ball 5 times for -2 yards this year, then he is a mediocre quarterback at best. With this foot injury, he doesn't have the mobility, and if you re-aggravated it, they might be forced to go to Will Grier this weekend against the Cardinals.
All right, moving on to the Steelers. After it was announced Ben Roethlisberger would undergo season-ending elbow surgery, Big Ben vowed he would come back stronger than ever next season, and his head coach Mike Tomlin is comfortable with the strong possibility Big Ben returns. CC, despite the optimism, should the Steelers be preparing for life without Big Ben?
Well, this is the thing. The Steelers have the information on the injury. It's not a career-ending injury, all right? They have a 3rd-round pick in Mason Rudolph, who they are grooming. He's going to get a bunch of reps. So in the process, yes, in real time, they're thinking about what we're going to do after, but you have to give him an opportunity to be able to come back from the injury. If you signed him to a contract, a 3-year extension, you thought he could play those 3 years. There's nothing, any information that I've got from any people in the medical field or any information that I've read that shall stop him from playing 3 years. The only reason why we don't think Ben's going to play 3 years is because we think all these other quarterbacks are in better shape. So this is not the injury that will end his career. He'll be able to throw the ball. He'll get back to 100%. Peyton Manning, when he had the nerve damage in his neck and he had the surgery and everything, and he didn't have feeling all the way in his hand, we didn't know what was going to happen. But the prognosis was it should return. But in some people, they don't get full feeling. They don't get full strength back into their hand. So we knew what could happen to Peyton Manning. He started off spectacular, and then he faded. We were not shocked. The information on Ben's injury, it's totally different. It's not a career ender, but because of what we think about Ben and his lack of taking care of his body, that's the only reason why we think it's the end of the line. But any quarterback that gets injured at that stage, the team is thinking about what the future is. They wouldn't have spent the 3rd-round pick if they weren't thinking about the future. I think more now it's going to be about style. Do we get back to being a more physical team, or do we continue to spread the field and throw the ball all over the place, which we've done, basically like 5 out of the last 8 years?
And listen, Mason Rudolph's now their quarterback. He teams up with his old college teammate James Washington, see if they can rekindle some of that. You have Juju, and the Steelers, whether I think it's the right move or not, it's irrelevant in this regard. They clearly are not preparing for life without Big Ben. 8 hours after they found out that they we're not going to have Big Ben for the rest of the year. They traded away their best asset to prepare for life without Big Ben to add Minkah Fitzpatrick to help the team right now and next year with Big Ben. So the Steelers clearly believe two things. One, we can compete this year with Mason Rudolph, or else you don't. They didn't trade that pick thinking what I'm thinking, that it's going to be a top 6 pick. They traded that pick thinking, you know what? Why can't we be a wild card team in the AFC? Why can't we, with Mason Rudolph, be better than the Bills or the Titans or whomever's going to be that 6th playoff team in the AFC? And we're going to have Big Ben next season, and then maybe a year from now, or a year and a half from now, we'll have a decision about Big Ben's final year of his deal and Mason Rudolph, who played well this season. That's how they see things going. I don't see things going that way, but they've made it very clear. They are still in win right now mode, and you have to keep in mind the two decision makers there, Tomlin and Colbert. I mean, they can't be thinking about 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers, because if 2019 Pittsburgh Steelers don't get it right,
then there is no 2021.
One or both of those guys might not be there. Exactly right. So they are in, as the Steelers have been my whole life, championship mentality despite the injury to the quarterback. I think they might look back on this with some regret, but they clearly think they can still compete this season, and they clearly think that Big Ben will be their starting quarterback at the beginning of next season.
But there has to be a part of the brain trust within the organization that says, well, looking at what we have, do we have the pieces that could turn into the Steelers team we had a couple years ago? Could Juju or James Washington be the next Antonio Brown? Could James Conner turn into the next Le'Veon Bell? Are they at the beginning? Maybe that's the too big of a ceiling, or can we bridge that gap? And if so, maybe then you can wait for Big Ben or go with Mason.
I want to tweak that a little bit. I think the question is more, can Juju be better than he was last year? All right, well, it's similar to what he was so good last year. Can Conner and Juju be close enough to AB and Le'Veon Bell that if our defense is far better than it was 2 years ago with all the investment they spent, another first-round pick, trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's how you bridge the gap? They're not going to be the 13-3 team with all pros all over the place. But can they be 9-7, 10-6 with an improved defense, all those first-round picks, and Juju and James Conner continuing to improve? I think that's what they're anticipating, not that Juju's going to be AB, who's on a Hall of Fame track, that James Conner's going to be Le'Veon Bell, is one of the best running backs in football.
Ever since Chuck Noll took over the Pittsburgh Steelers and they struggled early, they've had Pro Bowl players, all-pro players in every single decade. The ownership has not changed. Their mentality has not changed. There were a number of times during Bill Cowher's tenure there that people called for his head. He's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. But the Pittsburgh ownership is more patient than any ownership in all of sports. So thinking that Mike Tomlin is on the hot seat, I would just say they're far more patient, and we're apt to be more wrong on that because that's just the way the Rooneys, the way they do business. They groom the players. They coach up the players. They have made all these Pro Bowl players. So they got hell of a confidence. If we draft them or we get on free agents, we can coach them up. That's what they've always done. In Ben's injury, it does not change that. Now, over the last 3 years, they lost Dick LeBeau. Since then, their defense hadn't been one of the top defenses. So style moving forward, what they're going to do, I know that the organization believes in the coaches and believe if we draft quality kids, the coaching staff will develop them into Pro Bowl players.
All right, let's leave it there. Take a break. Coming up, would adding Jalen Ramsey make the Kansas City Chiefs unstoppable? Next on First Things First.
It make the Eagles unstoppable, though.
Back here with Coach Mangini talking Jalen Ramsey wanting out of Jacksonville. And the Chiefs are reportedly the primary suitor to land the all-pro cornerback. Chiefs players have started their own recruiting. Tyreek Hill tweeting at Jalen Ramsey, let's go. Tyrann Mathieu added, what's up, big head, to Jalen and his agent. That's a term of endearment, Coach. Whether Jalen's a Jag or a Chief, he's got one thing on his mind.
All I care about is winning, man. Everybody know that. I want to win. Straight up. Now, excuse my language, but everybody know that. That's who I am. That's that passion, that fire, that heart. That's what y'all love.
All right, Coach. What would Jalen Ramsey do to the Chiefs' Super Bowl hopes? You liked the comments, see?
No, I just wait to hear from Coach.
Well, here's how I feel about that. Look, and there's going to be different opinions on this. He's passionate, coaches swear in press conferences, other players swear in press conferences. I get all that in the moment. But if I'm someone who's looking to go to another team, and I'm someone that's looking to go to another team and get paid a ton of money, that press conference is really a job interview in a lot of ways, because it also says what type of guy are you getting, or it helps send a message one way or the other. So you see the fight on the sideline, and then you have the press conference, which really it's a job interview because everybody's looking at it, owners, GMs, coaches, and then you're sitting back and you're making that decision. Is Kansas City the best spot? Is that your hope and dream that
well,
he
no,
ends
I mean,
up there?
I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Well, look, he with elite corners, and I've coached 2 Hall of Famers. I coached Ty Law, I coached Darrelle Revis. They're easily both going to be in the Hall of Fame. What I loved about those guys is they were willing to do whatever we asked them to do. So if we needed them to play in the slot, they played in the slot. If we needed them to play cover 2, they played cover 2. If we needed them to run support, they were willing to run support. They were wanted them to play safety, they did that too. They needed to be outside on the punt return team as a vice, they did that because they were part of the bigger picture. So their greatness wasn't just limited with how they played, it was also what they were willing to contribute to the greater good. And they also weren't any issue outside of the locker room or any issue on the sidelines or any of that stuff. So when you've got all these things factored together and now he wants to leave the team he's with, I think it's a little bit of buyer beware.
Okay, so he wants to leave the team that he's with for a lot of reasons, one of which is they failed him.
Of course they failed him. Of course it's the team's fault that they failed him. How did the Jacksonville Jaguars fail him?
Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know exactly. You draft a player in the top 5. He instantly plays at an all-pro ability. He's always available. He's never in trouble. You can dislike the profanity, and we can say the GQ interview.
How many interceptions does he have?
Hold on, Coach.
3 years?
Partially because people don't throw to his side of the field. Do you dispute that he's one of the very best in the league at what he does? Do you dispute that he's one of the very best corners in football?
Have I sat back and watched all of his tape? Do I understand how he fits into the... I can't say... I would like to be able to say I watched a bunch of games and he is easily one of the best cornerbacks in the game. Is it the narrative that he's one of the best cornerbacks in the game? Yeah, but does that narrative easily flow to players if they're drafted high? Yeah, typically if a guy gets drafted high, everybody assumes, God, he must be a great player.
Let's just look at
regardless of how well he performs.
This isn't narrative. In his rookie year, he allowed a 77 quarterback rating. His second year, he allowed a 66 quarterback rating. His third year, he allowed a 74 quarterback rating. How
good was Jacksonville's defensive line those years?
Those very good. Particularly the last 2 of the last 3. Okay, so listen. Maybe you think he's not that good. I'm not going to argue on those points because I think he's excellent. I think he's the best corner in football. Patrick Peterson, when he comes back, has an argument to be alongside him. When I say that when you take a player at that position and he's never in trouble and he's always available and he has been the best player on your team, you are A, you're supposed to pay him, and B, for your most talented people, you are at times supposed to make acquiesce to certain things so they want to stay there. Because last year they were a bad team, not because of him, not because of that defense. That was a top 5 defense. And this year they're once again struggling. And so, yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars have failed with their relationship with Jalen Ramsey. I believe that. When you have a player that good, that productive, who 3 years and 2 games into his career says, I don't want to be here anymore, that is an organizational failure. How valuable is he for the Chiefs or the team tied to? I think he would be the best player of any player you could add in the league to add to them. Now, you brought up Aaron Donald earlier, C. The only pushback I would have there is the Chiefs have had pass rushers last 2 years. Defense hadn't been any good.
Not as good. Not
nobody's as good as Aaron Donald at that. I understand that. But they just added Frank Clark. They still have Chris Jones, D-tackle. But even if we want to say Aaron Donald be the #1 pick, fine. He is...
I was just correcting your statement. You said if I could take any player...
Sure.
And right? That's what that statement was about.
No problem. And so if I still would rather have Jalen because of the roster makeup, but now we're parsing. He's the best player you could add outside in your secondary of any player in the league to this team, and I don't think he'd be a problem in the Kansas City locker room. I don't think he'd want to leave Kansas City. I think they'd pay him, and I think they'd let him play the way he wants to play.
Well, this is the thing you have to be aware of. The Pittsburgh Steelers did everything that AB would want them to do. Every single thing. And ultimately, he still wanted to leave because he just wanted more money. So I don't know as an organization. I just think we have the wrong perception of these organizations, that these organizations are going to draft these guys and they're going to do right by them. They're going to make sure that their career is successful. They're going to make sure that they put players around them. They're going to make sure. Organizations don't think that way. They don't think it out that way. They're going to try to win. But also, when they go to drafting players, they're not, does this guy fit in with Jalen? Does this guy fit in? So Coach Mangini makes a good point. You can be a great talent. When we had Jake Reed, and Jake's my guy, Jake didn't have the football IQ I had. I'm not a typical Z receiver. Off the ball, guy going to be in motion and everything. I'm not fast enough. But I moved from my natural position so that Jake could flourish at the boundary side, and he knew the side adjustments, and it was easier for him. And in the offense, we were like, let's go double right, scat right, 585, X comeback. We told dude what to do until he got up to speed where he had more variety. When Randy Moss came, Cris had to make another decision, but it was to my benefit. I had to move from the Z receiver, which Randy Moss is more suited to play. And then I had to go back to playing in the slot full time because Jake was a beast at that time. He had 4,000 yards season. I just couldn't go over there and take his spot. So even if you're a great player, Ty Law, I know he's talking about him. Revis, I know he's talking about him. Even though they could travel and shut down a guy, it might have been best for them. But for the defense, it might have been better for them to play cover 2. It might have been better for the safety if they played a 4 across, cover 8. So what coach is saying, you can be great, but you on the team, it ain't all about you. And you going to shut down one receiver is not what's always best for the defense.
And oftentimes when you have this idea of he's a shutdown corner and you're just going to put him on it, there's 10 other guys that have to play a defensive scheme. So if you want to play eraser and say we're erasing him with this guy, and you want to play any defense besides cat coverage, you got that cat, I got that cat, you've got to do so many different things with the other 10 guys.
And you have to break a lot of principles.
A ton of principles to make this guy work. I'm not saying that you don't want to have a shutdown corner or you don't want to have a great corner at all, but to me, great corners are more than just I can take out that guy. It's how do they fit in the scheme? It's the willingness to compensate for someone else's weakness in order to make the group stronger. It's all those components. It's how disruptive you are in the locker room. And when you say an organization has failed someone because they haven't paid them or because they've gone through a hard time, there's a lot of hard time in sports. And don't you want the guys that are willing to go through that hard time with their teammates and try to turn that organization that made a commitment to you, a significant commitment to you, don't you want to pay that organization back?
And don't you as an organization, when you draft a player in the top 5 and he is instantly great, don't you want to reward that guy with a contract extension? When we talk about all these guys, you guys talk all the time about how much crazy there is in the locker room, how much stuff gets covered up, how much that we only see this % of it. There are no character questions about Jalen Ramsey. There are no availability questions about Jalen.
He was almost fought as head coach.
And Tom Brady almost fought Bill.
No. Tom Brady wasn't trying to fight.
Oh, and
no, that wasn't.
Okay.
Nick, you can't put them in the same breath.
All right, the idea.
And Tom Brady once in 19 years.
Okay,
there was
Tom
a
raised his voice.
Tom and Bill O'Brien got in a screaming match with each other. But we see. Listen, you guys.
Jalen. No, Nick. I've been on the sideline. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let you categorize them in the same category.
So Tom didn't get up and go after him. Agreed.
And there was no one who felt like, I got to remove the coach from in this guy's face. I know the coach is not going to hit him, but I don't know what the other guy's going to do. So I don't have a problem with Jalen except the press conference. Because if you're one of my marquee guys, you're also one of the faces of the league. I expect you to do a better press conference. I've talked to Jalen. I've seen Jalen's interviews. He's capable of better than that. So I don't have one problem with Jalen but what he said on getting ready for the game. His messaging points were the right way, but he's far more educated than to speak the way he did. And if you're representing the NFL team, you get behind the podium. When you sign your contract, you're supposed to do interviews once a week and after the game. That's the only problem that I have with Jalen. And if you're trying to move, market yourself. I'm going to be focused on the game. If you got a question about Thursday's game, those are the only questions. Just as simple. Use some of your words and your vocabulary compared to the way he went about that.
And listen, if we want to get after him on the profanity, fine. But my point remains, and you and I, Coach, I just have a different philosophical approach on a lot of these things, which is, yes, in a perfect world, every player is just, hey, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to abide by my contract. When the team pays me, it'll be generous of them to do it. And yes, even though I'm more comfortable playing this way, however you want me to play, I will play. In my experience, in sports or non-sports, when you are dealing with the most talented people in the world at their profession, the best managers of those people, recognize, might be a little crazy, might have a little diva to them, might need to give this person a little extra special treatment. And if you're Jalen, there's 3 things that can make Jalen feel good: winning, money, playing football the way he wants to. The winning, they're not doing. It's nobody's fault or everybody's fault. The money, they chose not to do it. Letting him play the way he wants to, they chose not to do it. Rightly or wrongly, that has led to the best player on their team, who is not even yet in the prime of his career, saying, I don't want to be here. That is an organizational failure.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.